So we know from social cognitive theory how important motivation is to learning, that they go hand in hand. So in this PowerPoint, we're going to discuss, or I'm going to discuss, different motivational theories and provide a quick overview of some and more in-depth overview of others. Interest is one motivational theory, and interest theory tells us that people are more motivated to do something because it's interesting, it's engaging, they want to do it to find more out. So there are two types of interest. One is personal interest, and the second type is situational interest. For personal interest, these are things that people are interested to do just because of who they are, their personalities, their likes, their dislikes. For example, I might read a 400-page book about baking because I'm personally interested in learning more about baking cupcakes and cakes and things. So that it would be interesting to me, so I would do it for personal interest. Situational interest is an interest created by the situation. So it may not be something that a person is really personally interested in, but you can help build their motivation, their interest in it by creating a situation that invites curiosity or interest. For example, when I was in 5th grade, I was not very interested in science, but my science teacher on the first day of class came out with a cup of green liquid with brown things floating in it. And she was talking to us about how we're going to use our senses and observational skills in science that year. And she was smelling it and describing what it smelled like and what it sounded like. And then she said, and our other observational tool is, our sense tool is taste. And she took a big swig of this green liquid with brown things floating in it. And it was disgusting. And we all thought it was sewer slime. But it turned out it was Mountain Dew and raisins. But that created interest in something I wasn't necessarily interested in, but it created situational interest. Another theory of motivation is expectancy value, and it includes the two pieces, expectancy and value. And expectancy value says you can't have motivation without both of them. You need expectancy and value. So what is expectancy and value? Well, one, expectancy is that a person expects to do well on a task. Most people don't willingly engage in a task if they think they're going to utterly fail. So there has to be some expectation for success on the part of the person who's engaging in the task. And the person has to have some value in engaging in the task. Most people, or in fact no one, willingly engages in a task that they see no purpose or no value in. So you have to expect to succeed in a task and have value for that task. So it's not enough to just expect you can do well. I expect I could do well on a first grade mathematics test, but I'm not going to go out and do one because I don't really have a value of doing that. Or on the other hand, I may value learning how to do a sophisticated mathematical formula, but I don't necessarily expect that I'll do well, so I'm not going to engage in that task. Here you can see 4 types of values. They're also in the expectancy value journal activity that you're going to do. So I'm not going to go through those here, but make sure you know these 4 types of value. Another motivational theory is goal orientation or goal motivation, and it includes an aspect of this table that you see here. So there's mastery and performance and approach and avoidance. So you combine these two, so you could have a mastery approach orientation, a mastery avoidance, performance approach, and performance avoidance. So mastery goal orientation is when a person engages in a task or doesn't, but the motivation is to master or to truly learn whatever the topic is. Where performance is comparing to someone else, so you want to look better than other people. So you take a spelling test not because you want to see how well you did and to test your knowledge, but to compare yourself to your neighbor. So that's performance. Approach means that you engage in the task, you approach it, and avoidance means you avoid it. You don't engage in that task. So mastery approach would be you engage in certain tasks because you want to learn them. You want to get better at doing things. Performance approach, you engage in a task in order to show off, to be number one, to show your teacher that you're a good student, or to do better than your buddy that sits in the next row over. Mastery avoidance would be you don't engage in an activity if you don't think you can master it. This one is harder to see, and there's some debate on whether it actually exists, because if people are truly mastery oriented, then they would engage in activities that would make them better. But for the sake of this class, it does exist. And performance avoidance is avoiding certain tasks that you don't think that you would look the best in, or you don't want to look bad, so you don't engage in those tasks. So mastery is comparing to yourself. Performance is comparing to others. Attributions is another motivational theory, and attributions are the reasons or explanations or excuses, or however you want to think of it, for an action, and these will affect future actions. So how people attribute their success or failure will determine future actions. And those attributions have three different factors. Locus, or also called locus of control, whether it's internal, if they were in control or caused it, or external, if something outside the person caused it. Stability or instability. If something is stable, it's likely to happen again. If it's unstable, then it's not likely, or you don't know if it's going to happen again. So luck is not stable. It comes and goes. You don't ever know. Whereas if someone thinks they're just smart, that's pretty stable. It's not going to suddenly decrease. Controllability is whether a person feels they have control or not, or whether a person can control it. So if it's an external locus of control but controllable, you might say, well, the teacher just doesn't like me. Well, the teacher can, you might feel the teacher can control whether they like you or not, he or she likes you or not, but it's still an external locus of control. So which one do you think is the most adaptive? The internal locus of control, and if it's stable, is going to be the most adaptive. Also, people want to be able to control their own, what happens to them, so controllability also plays a factor. But if you're attributing things to external factors, particularly if we're thinking of students and they're attributing a failure or a success to something outside. The teacher likes me. The teacher really helped me. I cheated off my neighbor or whatever. Something that is external is not going to help them in the future because it may or may not be there. And it doesn't help their sense of self-efficacy that we learned about from social cognitive theory. So we want to help students to look inside and find reasons and explanations that are internal rather than always looking to the external sources of control or locus of control. You also want to help students to not fall into learned helplessness. This goes with attributions, and you can read about that in your textbook. Something to remember about attributions is they don't necessarily have to match reality. It just has to match that person's reality. So if a person may attribute their success or failure to something that is not the actual cause, but that's how they explain it. So it doesn't always have to match reality. Another theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a humanist theory. It focuses on people as humans, and you can see that it's built on a pyramid. So at the bottom level, we have physiological needs that people need to have needs met, such as food, water, warmth, rest, those basic needs. Next, after those needs are met, people focus on safety needs, the need to feel safe and secure. After those needs are met, they can focus on belongingness and love needs, the the need to fit in, feel like you belong to someone, belong somewhere. Then after you meet those needs, you can focus on esteem needs, or this is self-esteem kinds of things. And then finally, self-actualization. This is where true learning occurs. So if we're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to meet all of those 4 needs under self-actualization: physiological, safety, belongingness, esteem. Those are called deficiency needs. All those needs need to be met before a student can really start to learn about the history of the American Revolution, or learn about the Washington, D.C. before they go on the field trip. So they need those needs met, those deficiency needs, before they can get to self-actualization, which is a growth need. The thing about deficiency needs, those bottom 4, is that a person can't move on until those needs are met. So starting at the bottom, a person can't move beyond focusing on a need for food or water until that need has been met. So a person isn't thinking about, do I fit in, or how do I look, if they're thinking about, I didn't have dinner last night, I didn't have breakfast this morning, I'm hungry, or I'm tired. So those needs have to be met before you can move on to the next level of needs.